Hi, Mike Keiser here. In our program, the Human Performance Academy, we delve into what we call the 4 performance influencers. These are the 4 main areas that a person has to master in order to become a peak performer. Today I'm going to talk about the first one of those for a few minutes, and that is vision. Now, I know in every book that you've read about improving yourself or being more successful, in every seminar you've attended, they talk about vision. You hear about vision so much that it may even start to lose its meaning or sound like a platitude. But I've discovered you hear about it so much because it's vital. It is vital to being a high achiever. Vision isn't that boring statement that you wrote at the top of your business plan or your strategic plan 5 years ago that you don't even look at anymore. Vision is what gives your actions meaning. Vision is what moves you. It's what compels you and motivates you, and vision is what helps you work through the challenges. You might wonder, well, how is this relevant to being a peak performer? I have to be candid and say that every peak performer that I'm aware of, or that I know personally, has a very clear sense of where they're going and why and how they're going to get there. I can't stress it enough. It's vital to being a peak performer, because knowing where you're going and knowing why you're engaged in specific behaviors certainly requires having a clear vision. Otherwise, we wouldn't know what we should be doing from one minute to the next or one day to the next. And it helps us make better decisions because those decisions are being based on the end result, based on where we want to go. We also find that as we accomplish goals, the answer to what's next becomes a lot more clear when we have vision. Vision allows us to act from a proactive stance, moving toward what we want, rather than reactively away from what we don't want. Business leaders need to have a strong vision. Otherwise, an organization would be like a ship without a rudder, just being taken from place to place, never knowing where it's going to end up next. But most importantly, why I think you need to have a vision is because I don't want you to lower your standards for what you want out of this life. I think often we tend to settle for whatever life gives us because, well, we come up with excuses because I have this to take care of. I can't worry about my vision. I've got my bills, I've got my kids, I've got my mortgage, I've got my business, etc., etc. These are all just fake excuses, by the way, but we do tend to settle for just wherever we end up. And I don't want you to do that. I want you to create something of significance, something that's significant for you, something that's significant for the people around you. Living a vision is frankly how you're going to add the most value to the world. It's how you bring your best to the world. And truthfully, it's going to be what creates the most valuable business for you. Again, something I've seen 100% of the time is that the people that make the most money are the most clear about what they want. Let me say that again. The people that make the most money are the most clear about what they want. I've had this conversation before. As I say, we present this a lot in the Human Performance Academy, and once in a while I'll hear somebody say, "My vision is to make more money." And let me tell you, that is very much a fear-based vision, and it never works. It represents what we talked about a minute ago of moving reactively away from something. Every time I hear someone say, "My vision is more money, my vision is I want to be rich," as I see them over time, they almost never make any. So your vision has to be something that is not fear-based, that is internally motivating, that's going to not just cause you to settle for whatever life throws at you, but it's going to cause you to every day take huge action towards something that has meaning. Now, let's slow down for a little because we do live in the real world. So as we're thinking about vision, maybe your vision is, well, I'd like to be an astronaut, or I'd like to be a rock star. Those happen to be 2 things I would very much like to be too. But again, we live in the real world. So as you're considering what your vision is, I want you to also take into consideration what are your other responsibilities. Maybe you can't just pack up and go do anything you want. So what are the other responsibilities that you have in your life? To be a solid human being, we have to live up to our responsibilities. Also, consider what resources are available to you. Now, for example, I have a niece who's a national champion figure skater, probably going to be in the Olympics in 2014. And I know that she has 5 different coaches that train her. So as we're thinking about what are our vision, what resources do we have available to us? What knowledge, what information do we have available to us? Where do our skills lie? So it isn't just so much about saying, I want to be this or my vision is to do that. Yes, I want you to dream. I want you to think about what's going to give your life the most meaning, because it will make you the most successful. But be realistic about it. Remember that we do live in the real world. So consider your resources, consider your skills, consider what knowledge and information you have. And another thing we stress firmly in the HPA is that we also need to understand where our strengths and our talents are. And I say that because if we don't believe in our gut 100% in our vision, it's not going to happen. I was at a seminar recently and the facilitator was talking about this very subject, talking about vision. And he went around the room and he was asking different people, well, what's your vision? And I don't remember what everybody said, but I remember one fella said, I want to win the Nobel Prize. Now, not to say he's not qualified to win the Nobel Prize. Don't know who he was. He very well might. But I had to think about that because after he said, I want to win the Nobel Prize, you know, the facilitator, good job, that's great, that's awesome, and etc. And I thought, well, what makes you believe you can? Maybe you can win the Nobel Prize, but are you working on something currently that could be worthy of a Nobel Prize? Do you know even how to go about that? What are you doing that's moving you toward that? Because if you don't believe it, if you don't believe that it's true, it's not going to happen. I had an interesting conversation a couple of months back with legendary University of Connecticut basketball player and now University of Hartford coach Jen Rosati. And we were talking about this very topic, about peak performance, and what makes people peak performers. And we got on the subject of talent and self-confidence. Because I asked her, what is the key indicator to her when she sees a player that they're going to be a high achiever? And she said, must have said 15 times in our conversation, self-confidence. She said self-confidence is the key. And so that led to more questions. Well, where does self-confidence come from? And I know that sometimes the conventional wisdom says, you can be anything you want. You can do anything you want. That may be true, but we probably shouldn't. We've found in our studies and my conversations with people like Jen Rosati and others that we are the most successful when we are working at something that taps into our strengths and our talents. Now, I know there's ongoing debate about, well, is there any such thing as inherent talent? You know, do we have genes that are going to cause us to be more talented at one thing and less talented at another? I believe it's true, but regardless, we get talents from somewhere. We all have talents we can tap into. So in considering what your vision is and where you want to go, I also want you to make sure that you're working on something that does tap into where your strengths and your talents lie, because once again, you need to believe 100% in that vision. You have to have the self-confidence or you're not going to get there. So if you buy into why vision is important, the next logical question would be, well, if you're not already crystal clear on what your vision is, how do you get there? How do you get there if you don't really know? If you don't know that thing that's going to just completely draw you, or as an old friend used to say, cause you to be like a badger chasing a rabbit down a hole. Because I have to stress, I know I mentioned it before, but we have to be very clear. If anything is fuzzy about our vision, if anything's fuzzy about where we're going, we can get stuck, we can get stagnant. We work with dozens of business owners, and I've seen over and over again people that have been in business 10 years, 15 years, get stagnant, get stuck because they are simply not clear on where they want to go next. So where do you start? Well, one question, now in the HPA we take everyone through a very long comprehensive vision exercise, but I'll give you some of the highlights here, get you started. A good place to start is, as you think about your life, your industry, your business, what could be better? Meaning, what market isn't being served? What problem in your industry needs to be solved and you can be the one to solve it? What innovations in your industry or in your business could you create that are going to move you to a whole new direction? Maybe it's not a whole new direction. Maybe you're already pretty close, but you're not just exactly clear on where you're going. So thinking about where could things be better? Where could things be improved? What would that represent to you? How could it represent your vision to go out and solve one of those issues, to make your industry better, to make your business better? Another thing that works for some folks is think about what makes you really mad in your business or industry that needs to change. You know, is there something that just is a thorn in your side, something that just bugs you in your industry or in your world that you have a strong desire to go out and change? Now, besides just knowing, where you want to go or what issue you want to solve or what thing of significance that you want to create, another important thing to consider in this is what kind of role do you see yourself ideally filling? Because there's no way that we're all good at everything. So in considering your vision, think about what roles, think about the past, think of what roles you've performed the best in. What roles allow you to tap into your strengths and your talents the most? Along those same lines, the same lines as what roles do you want, what kind of responsibilities do you want? What do you want to be responsible for? So again, consider past projects or ideas, which ones really jazzed you, which ones really brought out your best. That's a good place to start. Once you've thought about what responsibilities you want to have, what roles you ideally want to fill, then I need you to consider what's available to you as far as resources. What information is available to you, what training is available to you, certainly what types of people are available to you, because I've never seen anybody achieve their vision in a vacuum. It takes people around us, it takes people that believe in what we do to help us achieve our vision. So take a strong look at what available resources you have and how you can go about acquiring the necessary resources to achieve your vision. I also want you to think about what legacy do you want to leave? What legacy do you want to leave behind in this world? Because I'll say it again, all peak performers are quite clear on their vision and what gives them meaning. We must have a strong sense of why we do what we do if we want to be a higher achiever. It's not pie in the sky, and it's not optional if you want to be the best. So get very clear on what it is you want. That first step toward peak performance, get very clear on what it is you want, and that will be the first step into being a higher performer. I'd like to invite you to learn more on the page where you see this video. There are links below to learn more about the E-Circle and about the Human Performance Academy. But until then, thanks for listening and take care.